So now we need to look at math models. These are going to be quite often somewhat associated with the handshake rule, but instead of just trying to memorize a formula, people will say, okay, this is the formula, and is that right? Stop and think more about the logic of what is happening. And what I mean by that is this. If I look at a polygon, no matter how many sides the polygon has, I'm not even going to count how many sides I'm doing here. Thinking about the diagonals drawn from one vertex. Well, here's the vertex itself. So I know that I'm going to have to multiply n times something. So the number of vertices, and then how many diagonals go from each vertex. Well, it can't draw a diagonal to itself, so that's already minus one vertex. You can't draw a diagonal to either one of the consecutive vertices. So I'm going to have to take 3 vertices off. So if I have 40 sides, each vertex can only be draw a diagonal to 37 other vertices. Because it can't draw a diagonal to itself, can't draw a diagonal to either one of the adjacent vertices. So no matter how many sides I have, I'm going to be able to draw 3 fewer diagonals from each vertex. Now the other problem is, if I just leave it this way, when I think about this diagonal, I'm counting this diagonal once from here, but I'm counting the same diagonal once from here. And I don't want to double count that diagonal. So I have to divide by 2 to take care of the double counting. So this is the formula, if you will. But if you understand why the formula is what it is, you don't have to memorize it. You just understand it. So a 24gon, I would take 24 times 21, because of 3 fewer diagonals, and divide by 2. So 24 times 21 divided by 2 is 252 diagonals. It asks me how many diagonals, so I'm going to label my answer. How many two-person conversations are possible with a party of 60 people? Well, I'm starting with 60 people. Each person can have a conversation, a two-person conversation with 59 other people. They can't talk to themselves and have a two-person conversation. Now they can talk to themselves, but in theory it is not a two-person conversation. So each of those 60 people could have 59 other conversations. But again, I don't want to count if Zach and Megan, my niece and nephew, if Zach and Megan are talking to each other, I don't want to count the conversation they have twice. The conversation from Zach to Megan and the conversation from Megan to Zach. So I have to divide by 2 to actually make that adjustment, so I'm not double counting. When I multiply this out and divide by 2, I end up with 1,770 conversations. Now, there can be more than that number of conversations, but there can only be that number of two-person conversations. And then a baseball league with 16 teams. Now, if each team played each other team once, well, 16 teams, they can play 15 other teams, because you wouldn't count them playing themselves. But you would divide by 2 so that you don't double count each game. But then that would be if they played each other once. They play each other 6 times, so I'm going to multiply this by 6. When I do that, there are 720 games in the league each season. So think about each one, what you multiply it by. Most cases you're going to divide by 2 so you don't double count. And then in this case there are 6 different teams, 6 games for each, so times 6. Thank you.